everything that is in my subconscious is somehow projecting this field that I now experience as reality. And if I can pinpoint what that is and alter my relationship to that thing, then it has an opportunity to alchemize and to harmonize so that either it turns into more beauty or it can disappear in a graceful way.
Welcome to the Deja Blu podcast, where we believe that living a life of magic can be the default. Join us each week as we playfully and authentically dive into the mysteries of life and explore what it truly means to be human. From spirituality, wellness, and all things taboo, we don't hold anything back. So without further ado, let's let the magic unfold. Hello, you beautiful humans, and welcome back to another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. Today, the podcast has been a little bit delayed because my guest and I like to be a little bit outrageous every time we're in each other's presence. And it sometimes it doesn't allow us to actually really get all of the things done that we said that we would get done. And we had to actually end up hiring someone to be with us in our shenanigans that then throw out one of these, which is what we call the focus box. Because we have to focus because the amount of outrageousness that breathes when we are in each other's presence. I am so excited to reintroduce to the Deja Blu podcast after almost a year of you being a guest, which is like single tear, but also really yay because you're back. I can hand on heart say that this woman is one of my bestest friends in the whole wide world. And if you aren't familiar with Reggie Riverbear, then go into the Deja Blu archive of all of the previous podcasts. She is laced all over it. And if this is the first time that you're hearing about her, then you will be able to feel the majesty and the fluorescence of who this majestic human is. And so I'm so excited to welcome back Reggie Riverbear onto the golden hands of the Deja Blu podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Such an honor to be in the new set. Looks so beautiful.
You like it?
I love it. Come on.
We're in like a jungle, walking
It's
the beauty
delicious.
way.
Yeah.
And then you showed up wearing this outrageous piece. Is it a whole piece?
It's a two-piece.
Wow. It's really, I mean, if you're listening on audio, don't walk, run to the YouTube channel, go watch the video so that you can just breathe in Reggie's outfit right now, because I swear that this woman is an essence of a rainbow in human form. And from your earrings to the way that you chose to wear your hair and the colorful outfit. And I knew that you were coming today, so I went for like the all red violet look.
Yes. I think we're a perfect match, babe. Yeah.
We're like strawberry and
flowering fields of divine goodness.
I'll take it. Beautiful. Okay. So there's so many different directions that we can go in today. But I would like to say that you and I have always pretty much run parallel around our own personal lives and the activations, the initiations that have gone on for us. And it has been a breath of fresh air to be able to navigate life in a parallel with you while sharing codes and holding so much unconditional love and space and patience for the breathing process of whatever it is that we're moving through. And you and I have, I would say, officially made it out on the other side of the dark night of the soul.
For now. Who knows? For now, yes.
For now?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah. The head is above the surface level of the water, and we're like,
yeah.
But both of us were kind of in it over the summer, and it was a really challenging summer for both of us, and we individually had our own unique initiations, and yet it created a very similar arc of a feeling that we both went through. And something that you have always taught me about, because of your embodiment, not necessarily through the preaching, but your embodiment, is your relationship with your altar and your relationship with prayer and your relationship with the power of attention, intention in a sacred space sent up over a consistent amount of time that builds a charge and waters a relationship with something that cannot be named. Right. You are a walking prayer and an altar and a rainbow in human form. That's just my experience of you. So I would love to share with the audience a little bit about the importance of altar work, but first and foremost, like your relationship to the altar and how it was formed and what is an altar. Like, let's get to basics. If anybody don't have an altar or this relationship to what I would like to call a telephone box to something greater than myself.
Right. Totally.
Please just share with me a little bit about how you became the embodiment of this essence that then has actually, you brought me home in a sense, and we'll go into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. First and foremost, thank you. Yeah, this has been such an amazing thing also to share with you and to really both dive deeper into what does it really mean to have an altar, to carry an altar, to take care of it. For me, in essence, to break it down, it's a technology. I think a lot of us start maybe with the idea of it's a collection of valuable things or it's a collection of sacred things. But when we dive deeper into the energetics that are inside of that grid work, that's where the real magic is. So I would say the first altar is inside of our hearts. The first altar is our prayer. The first altar is our spirit and our purpose and how we tend to that. And then the extension of it is the beauty that we create on the physical, representing, like you said, like the telephone line, the hotline to God, as my aunt likes to say. And I've been building altars since I was 8 years old. I have a picture of my first altar, and I used to go
Since you
to
were 8 years old?
Yeah.
You were building altars since you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought about like people that have been to the gym and they've been exercising since they were 16 years old and they're in their 30s now. And the amount of how dense the muscle is because it's been consistently built over, over a decade, 2 decades. You are like that, but you're the heavyweight of altar prayers. Like,
just been pumping that sacred iron.
But those prayers over, since you were 8 years old, you have packed yourself with prayers. Can we just energetically tune into what that even means? You have packed yourself since you were 8 years old with prayers at an altar.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Carry on as you were. Yeah, I have a picture of like one of the first ones that I built, and I have to give full credit to my mama because my parents separated when I was 7. And my mom devoted her whole life to spirituality and to really hardcore devoting herself to that life. And a huge part of that for us was to go to India and spend a lot of time there and learn the ceremonies in the temples. And so we brought that home, and our home became a center for all of these ceremonies and all of these rituals and all of the music and all of the people. And so in my little room, I have my little altar with, there's a beautiful woman. She's known as the hugging guru. Her name is Amma. I had an Amma doll when I was little. So she was on the center of my altar, and little candles and little drawings. And over time, as I matured and as I've gone through many waves of being super intimate with my altar and having moments away from it and not even bearing mind to it in my later teen years, what I've come home to time and time and time again is that if I have a solid relationship with this portal, with this gateway that I've devoted so much love and time to, no matter what it looks like, even if it's just the candle and the cloth, but there's a relationship there. And the relationship is what makes it an altar, right? The relationship is what gives it spirit, is what gives it life. And in that, I feel so safe. So for me, it's been a huge lifeline to navigating human existence. It's wild down here. It's crazy. And for me, if I have my altar, it's just a place where my spine straightens, where my heart opens, and where I can really soften into trust. So yeah, just to come back to the beginning, it's a technology. It's a technology for us to learn to read energy, on how to have a conscious communication with spirit, with the universe, with our guardian angels, with our guides, with our team, with the forces of nature, and to have a two-way conversation, right? As we're making offerings, whether it's just sitting there and giving our time, or whether it's placing flowers or it's giving a song to the altar, that's our way of saying, I'm here, I'm caring for you. And then the universe is reciprocity. So then the altar cares for us by giving us the insights that will take us to the next step in our evolution, or it gives us that just like sweet spirit hug when you're moving through something really shaky and all of a sudden you just feel like Divine Mother, Divine Father is giving you this warm hug just from sitting at your altar, and you can soften and relax. So for me, an altar is many things, but at the end of the day, it's home. I think that's the biggest way to put it. And it's been a joy to share it with you and to both just have this experience of the richness that it brings once it starts to come alive. Yeah.
When I first met you, and I mean, not necessarily first met you, but when we started really reopening the conversation around building an altar, we both co-founders of Florescence, a modern mystery school for women, and it's literally our heart in a body of work that we get to just guide sisters through activations. And so when we went into the Florescence program, I started to really understand deeper and deeper layers of what the altar meant, because for me it was just sort of like a sacred space. So I like put a couple of crystals on there, and I like put a nice little cloth, and I put some cards in front of it, and it was like, it almost felt like this is what I should do, but I don't really feel anything.
Right.
And so it was like, well, I've heard about altars and I heard the power of them, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, I'm here. And it was almost like it was just a table and me kind of just sitting in front of these things. And there was like there wasn't a relationship quite yet. And after being able to weave with you in deeper ways, first and foremost, you guided me to look at my life of where I'm actually not at the altar of my relationships. Like, where am I? Hey, like so-and-so's here, this person's here, like everyone's here, but where are you? Like I was in this like realm of distraction and constantly like chasing the next thing. The grass is greener on the other side, and moving very quickly, but not tending to the grass that was underneath my feet. And so you not only emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually brought me back to the altar, but then also you taught me a deeper level of reciprocity with what it means to open a portal. Like, oh, do you have the elements represented on your altar? No. Okay, well, you have all 5 elements, actually, if you're including spirit. You have them within the core of your being. They literally is what makes you up as a human being, and your emotional waters and your astrology and all of the things. But if you want to like open a gateway, then there's the 4 elements represented. So I would love for you to share a little bit more before I go into my own personal experience of what the elements mean when you're building an altar, and the importance of the elements. And the relationship to the elements, of how they can actually enhance our everyday life, as well as the conversation on the altar, and the potency of the elemental dance.
Yeah, I love it. Wow. I mean, for me and for many other people, the elements are the most distilled building blocks of creation. So when everything comes down to its core, when everything comes down to its natural, purest essence, it's made up of these 4 things: air, earth, water, and fire. And then in the center, we have spirit, the thing that brings it all together. And for me to have the elements represented on the altar is such a beautiful foundation, because it immediately connects us back to the beginning, to the purest form of relating to matter, of relating to spirit, of relating to the cosmos, and most of all, relating to what it means to be embodied. What does it mean to be here on planet Earth, and to being a conscious being that's actually operating in a very rich narrative of spirit, and to be a co-creator? So when we have the elements on the altar, they can really teach us about all areas in our life. If you have the fire represented by having your candle, the fire relates to our spirit, to the fire in our bodies, to the fire in our souls that's like, I have my purpose and I want to go for it. Even if I don't know what my purpose is, there's something inside of me that has this moving motion, and that's what I want to go for, right? That's the fire. So having that on our altar is saying to the cosmos, I am willing to learn what it means for my fire to be fully elevated, right? If we have the water next on our altar, the water is related to our emotional being, right? Everything we get to feel, everything we've ever felt, everything we're ever to feel is all encapsulated in this beautiful element of water. And so if I'm at my altar and I'm looking at my water and I see, wow, it's dusty and it's murky, that is a reflection of like, where am I not cleaning my emotional being? Where is it stagnant? Where am I not letting things flow through me? Then the earth element that's represented is our physical body, right? This beautiful machinery, this instrument that we've been given, this high-tech, quantum, yummy, fleshy computer. How do we take good care of it so that we can actually be in the most high energetic state to make a contribution? So connecting to the body through the earth elements. And then the 4th element is the air, and it's the element of the mind. And so our mental bodies, our thoughts, our habits, all of these things that are in this mental space is represented there. And so I'm cultivating a relationship to, even if I say I have a feather to represent the mind or the air, just me looking at that feather and, like Richard says, like coming into contemplation. I think from just my experience has been just placing my attention somewhere. Slowly over time, it starts to speak to me. And I think initially when we start opening up to these ways, it can be like you said, like, okay, I'm here, but I'm not feeling anything necessarily. I'm not doing anything. But it's a relationship that you build. So if you go up to this most beautiful being in creation, you're just like, hey, I'm here. Maybe it takes a moment for that trust to build. Maybe it takes a moment before you receive the secrets and the medicine and the insights. So having those things represented gives us an opportunity to really cultivate a connection with every part that makes up our experience and our existence. And through our time, through our authoring, through our tending to, it starts to give that back to us and give us the medicine that we need to really be in our most high alignment and embodiment.
The other night I was like, it was a Pisces new moon. I was up all night. I don't remember the last time I pulled an all-nighter, and it was not intentional, but I was so sad about something and I couldn't shake it. And it was like really heavy on my heart, and I was crying, but like not so much like crying as I was wailing. And I was to the point where I was like, oh, Anne's gonna hear me, and I'm gonna wake her up. I share a wall with her, and I'm like, like so sad. Like my face was so puffy, and like I looked in the mirror and I looked like I had aged like 10 years. I was like, oh. And all of a sudden it was like, go and sit at your altar. And it was 4:00 in the morning, and I just lit a candle, and I have a statue that you gifted me of Mother Mary. And I have this beautiful crystal and these roses, and I just sat there and I burned some incense, and I just stared into Mother Mary's face and into her eyes and felt the candle lit, and I just prayed and prayed and prayed. And there was like this soothing calm that washed over me. It was like a hug from my higher self that said, you're okay, baby girl. All is good. Thank you so much for giving yourself permission to cry. Thank you so much for not suppressing this. Thank you so much for allowing yourself to go there so that tomorrow you'll feel better and it doesn't have to keep popping up in little small kind of burst moments because you didn't give yourself fully permission to go there. Thank you so much for resting in the place of your sacred place after 40 days of a devotion challenge. Every single day for an hour, you sat here and prayed and tended to the water of the relationship with spirit. And I felt the elements on the altar. I felt, the fire that was lit up within me. I felt the hug from my higher self. And the contrast of going to that space and being like, well, here I am doing all the things. I've ticked all of the boxes. Look at me. I'm a sacred spiritual being and I have an altar. Woo! No one taught me this in school. I wish people would teach me how to do nonviolent communication, altar building, and how to do your taxes. Something I could actually use. Like really helpful, actually. And yeah, I had to learn, and it wasn't something that I did from when I was 8 years old. And so as an adult, being able to be in your prayer of who you be and witnessing you carry a little basket with your travel altar everywhere. P.S. I remember going to Mexico, and you had this massive suitcase. And I was like, girl, be getting like all her clothes with her. She'll be bringing all the things. Like she's really packed heavy. And I was like, I was surprised, Reggie, you packed so heavy. I would expect you to have like a little carry bag. And Reggie opened it up, and it was like, okay, there's 4 altar cloths that come out, and they're big altar cloths, and that's already 25% of the suitcase. And then she pulls out like, okay, there's this candle, and then there's this card that opens up, and there's a hummingbird that pops out 3D inside of it. Oh, and then here, this is another essential, a bear claw. That's really important. And so we're going to put that aside. And the next thing is the bark that bears claw at, because they like the smell. And so she pulls out the bark and puts that aside. And then by the time we've actually like unpacked 95% of the bag, it's all altar stuff. The rest of it is a couple of pieces of clothing that she may or may not even wear because she's probably naked in front of her altar 90% of the time while we're in Mexico. So I'm witnessing this was such a eye-opening experience for me around priorities, right? You can look at somebody's bag and go, all right, I've got my curling irons and I've got my hair straightener and I've got my makeup bag and all my cosmetics and all the things, right? That could be an example. No wrong and right. It's just priorities. And then your priority was, this room will be a living altar, and everywhere we go, we will see sacred. And I remember sitting in front of your altar that you made, and it was so stunning, by the way. It was such a beautiful altar. And we didn't have any mirrors at this retreat center. And so I was using my phone as a mirror to do my makeup, and I propped my phone up on your altar. And you came over and you were like, Blu, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I doing? You're like, why do you have your phone reflecting you back on the altar? And I was like, oh, that's not it. Oh, yeah, I can see from your perspective why this wouldn't look great. Like, yeah. And it's in those moments of living with you and recognizing the sacredness of the way that you weave your life as a prayer that I have been introduced to the sacred in every moment. And now when I am in the depth of my despair and my grief, I have a place to go. Because my mind will go, well, no one's awake at 4 o'clock in the morning. Who can I text? Who can, Rachel's probably sleeping, most likely. And also, like, where is the blurry lines between our professional relationship and our personal relationship? Like, it's got really blurry. I did have someone. I had myself. I had my conversation with something greater than myself. And so I just wanted to, like, say thank you first and foremost for what it is that you have allowed me to have access to in this life, and also reminded me of actually what's important. And this is a big module. This is one of the modules in our 7-week online program that we are about to launch another round of.
I'm so excited. And I feel like this is one of the pieces that the women who have been through the program have really connected to, because it's that. It's like in all the crazy shitstorm of life, there's like the solid space where you just know, if I sit and I connect, I'm good. And to have something like that in a time like this, I think is imperative, like so important.
We don't know what we don't know until we know it, right? I didn't know how important it was because I didn't know it. I've never also seen it. But then actually experiencing it, then I was like, oh, this is everything. And I will never, ever, ever live in a home or a space without an altar ever again.
And your altar is so stunning now. Can we get an amen for your altar? It's amazing. It's so palpable how much time you spent there and how rich the energy field is. And you always have fresh flowers, and just everything on there is just like dancing, living their best lives, being with you. It's so beautiful.
Oh, and another thing that, thank you. And there was another thing that I realized about the altar and the magic of the altar was when I was laying in bed, I was really sad about this certain thing. And there was a piece representing the thing that was making me sad on the altar. And I was like, why can't I move this through? Like, why am I having a hard time getting this out of my consciousness? And then I got this intuitive hit. It's because you still have it on the altar. And I went over to the altar and I took it off the altar. And literally, it, like, whether it's placebo or not, at the end of the day, the results is whether it worked or not. And I noticed, like, right after that, I managed to fall asleep. Like, I stopped circling and going over and over. And I think that the altar is, what are you praying about right now?
Yeah.
What is your prayer right now?
It's alive.
It's literally a living, breathing piece or place. It's like a living transmission of, like, okay, so if, say, for example, you're going through something, or like I've been going through something, you say, okay, I'm going to light a candle for you tonight. And then you place that candle, you say a prayer, and you place it on your altar. So now as the candle burns down, that prayer is charging me. If I could be the other side of the planet, but you just lit a candle for me. And so whenever I'm going through something, you say, okay, Mom, I'm going to light a candle for you and put it on my altar. I just thought that was so... Would you share your 2 cents around what that means to, like, place your prayer onto the altar space once you've charged it, once you've opened up the portal, once you've cultivated your relationship with it, then you place something that is your prayer. How do you believe that then emanates out into the universe to create a charge around the very thing that you're asking for support with?
It's kind of like a Wi-Fi connection in a way. It's like we have our modem, we have the altar, it's there. And through just the quantum web, everything is interconnected, right? We know this, everything is energy, everything is interconnected. And so what steers that is ancient technologies and our energy and our intention. So you don't have to be present to receive the medicine. That's why people can do like distance healing, distance Reiki, for example, or when you walk in the church and you're holding a prayer and you're lighting a candle in the church, it feels maybe different than when you're lighting a candle on the kitchen counter in your house because the energy is already there. And so it's like we're impregnating that portal, that field with this prayer. And because it's already such a strong connection, it goes immediately to where it needs to go. And I think it's such a beautiful thing because anyone can do it. I don't feel like you don't have to go to school. It's like just deep listening and trust. And like you said, maybe it's placebo. Who knows? But I've seen so many miracles that I know that I don't care what it is. I know that for me, it's real. Yeah.
Can you extend a little bit of your understanding around the Ho'oponopono prayer? Because that's something that you have shared with me, like certain stories that have happened, miracles that have happened from you sitting in. And I think one of the main pieces here is consistency. Right? Like there's a consistency to praying, having a focus and attention, and then a charge around the actual prayer itself. And Ho'oponopono is something that really stands out to me that has been so deeply beneficial. And I've only known it from more of a surface level, but the depth of this prayer is something that you carry so beautifully. And if you'd be open to sharing your relationship with the Ho'oponopono, what even if that is.
Sure. In all humility, like I'm obviously not Hawaiian, and it's something that found its way to me and that really resonated and that I've been praying with, and that has radically changed my life. I recently got to be in the presence of some beautiful Hawaiian elders who even took it deeper, my understanding of it. And it's come to be kind of well known through the I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry. But this is like scratching the tiny surface of an incredible, deep, ancient prayer. So in Hawaiian, the word pono means to be in right relation. And this is really the essence of the prayer. It's like we are in relation to everything, right? To all my relations. We are in relation to every person, everything in nature, all of the thought forms of all of creation. We are in relation to everything. So working with this prayer is working with the relationship you have to a situation, to a person, to an ailment, whatever is present. And so for me, when it came really strong was to really understand that radical responsibility was a huge part of this prayer in my experience, saying that everything that is in my subconscious is somehow projecting this field that I now experience as reality. And if I can pinpoint what that is and alter my relationship to that thing, then it has an opportunity to alchemize and to harmonize so that either it turns into more beauty or it can disappear in a graceful way. So for me, my most powerful experience with that is having Lyme disease for 5 years. And I got to be very sick a lot of times and hit my deathbed a few times and just went through the full rite of passage. And just a little context, with this virus, when you try to push it out of your body, it has a very strong intelligence, and so it mutates. And so the more you fight it, the more it fights back. The stronger you get, the stronger it gets. So it's a very interesting thing to have a conversation with. And I got to a point where my doctor said to me, if we don't get it out of your body now, you're going to be in serious trouble, and I don't know if you're going to make it. So that was a pretty real moment for me. And of course, I went all in with frequency therapy and supportive herbs. And I've been doing that for years and went through so many ups and downs. And this was the moment of truth for me. Like either it was going to get out of my body or it was going to take me out of my body. So I went all in. And because there was so much medicine coming into my body, the response from the virus is to show its muscles. And so for me, that translated to very strong suicidal thoughts. And it lasted for 2 weeks where I was literally confronted with, and thank God I have experiences with parasites, and I know it's not my voice, but when it's that strong, it takes you to the edge of being sane. And so I was laying in bed under the covers in the dark for 2 weeks with these thoughts. And I reached a breaking point where I was like, what is it in me that wants to die? Like, what is it in me that is creating this? And I heard a tiny sentence, like from the back of my storage unit of my subconscious, that said, I don't want to be here. And it immediately clicked for me that when I was a kid, I had so many moments where I just didn't get it. Like being on this planet, seeing all the destruction, seeing all the pain, and praying to go home, praying my face off to go home. And all of that prayer had accumulated in this one little thought form that said, I don't want to be here. And so when I heard that, I immediately knew this is where this virus can enter my consciousness. This is where this virus can come into my body, can come into my being. That's the feeding point. That's the start of it. And so I said my prayer, my ho'oponopono, okay, I'm sorry. And I hear you, and this is actually not true. And offering my whole being to this relationship that I had with this thought form and praying my light into it and really claiming in that moment my radical responsibility. That has been my thought. This is the experience I'm now having. And I'm now reclaiming that that thought is no longer accurate or welcome in my reality. And working with the Ho'opono prayer, working with that frequency, working with forgiveness, working with radical responsibility, it immediately dissolved. And within 2 days, I was up and running, and I've never had a symptom since, after 5 years of being clobbered all the time. So that for me was a moment to understand that this prayer, and the Hawaiians have such an incredible intelligence through their deep relationship to spirit and to nature. So I feel like a lot of the medicine that comes through them is so pure, it's so clean, like indigenous traditions. And that prayer really, and that, when we work with a prayer that's related to a lineage or related to a group of people or a tradition, when we come with our humble hearts, I feel like the whole, like this whole psychic field that has been built up over thousands of years of people praying with the same thing, we get to be swept up and educated by that space. And so that was my experience in that moment. I felt like everybody who has been working with this forgiveness and with this responsibility was there with me, and we shifted the game immediately. And so going from almost dying to being the best I've ever been through this one prayer was a very palpable, very potent experience. And I've had many of those moments where it just confirms in my body. It's like, it's so much more than having the right words or having it look good. It's really about, am I willing to fully own that I created this? And it has nothing to do with blame. It's taking ownership, right? Because in the ownership is where the empowerment comes. And I feel like that's at the foundation of this prayer. It's much richer with like working with the ancestors and things like this. But for me, what it comes down to is that like I take full ownership of what my ancestors, my beings have brought to the table for this to exist. And I ask for your forgiveness. And if that is a true, sincere prayer, then things can harmonize and dissolve. Yeah.
I'm just imagining listening or watching this podcast, and those that do not have either A, a relationship to their own prayer, or B, a relationship to any sort of sacred space, aka an altar. I would be like, all right, bringing everything back to the drawing board, the importance of this and to not overlook this. And for me, my life really, really started to tap into a magical dimension when I started praying as something that I just do to live by. It's not something that's like, oh, okay, well, life is really tough right now, so I'm going to go and pray. It's like, instead of just going when I need something, to like, actually, hold on 1 second.
Schnooby.
Lily wants to sit on my lap. Star of the show has arrived. is to pray as life, or life is a prayer. So when I'm doing the dishes, I'm always consciously or unconsciously manifesting with every single thought, thinking around 60,000 thoughts a day. And in the in-between moments when I'm not focusing my attention and intention on a project or a conversation or what's right in front of me, I am manifesting. I'm manifesting with my thoughts when I'm doing the dishes. I'm manifesting with my thoughts while I'm painting. I'm manifesting with my thoughts while I'm going to the bathroom, right? Like whatever it is. But in those moments, if I recognize that I can have and pick up the telephone to something greater than myself in every in-between moment, then why would I actually go a day or even an hour without sending a prayer up? When I actually understand the potency of how it works. And now also something that I feel in your prayers, what makes them so charged is your belief. When you pray, there is no ounce in you that says, in your thoughts, oh, what are you doing, Reg? What are you doing?
What are you up to now, Reggie?
Yeah. Come on, Reggie. What are you doing? Stop praying. You got things to do. No, you believe that prayer is by directly in conversation with that cannot be named. That is the beloved that you have cultivated a relationship with since you were 8 years old. Right? Imagine if you and I were friends since you were 8 years old and every day we spoke since you were 8. How rich our friendship would be.
Yeah, totally.
So the same with that's what I'm saying. Like you go to the gym and you work out since you were 16 years old and all of a sudden the muscles are so dense from the inside out that they're rock hard. It doesn't matter like what it is that you do. They're just there because they're so packed with consistency. Well, that's also the same equivalent that I feel within you and everybody feels within you. Even when you arrived today, Rach came into my room and was like, oh, I'm so happy Reggie's here. Miss Reggie. She's so amazing. And then walks out and gets on with like whatever it was that she was doing. And I was just like, that's what happens when you become the medicine. That's what happens when you pack yourself with divinity. That's what happens when you believe so entirely in the core of your being that this prayer is real and I'm doing it right now because my life is a prayer. Then all of a sudden, the line between you and the divine, it gets really blurry because you are it. And I do believe that we are all it, and yet we've forgotten our divinity.
Totally.
And that's the beautiful thing about the altar. That's the beautiful thing about prayer is that anybody can do it. Anybody can have access to it. Anybody can pack themselves with their own power doubled. Anybody can cultivate a relationship with something greater than themselves beyond the narrative of religion. Because also that's another thing that we've noticed within the Florescence container is that the women that we've worked with have been reintroduced to a new level of praying beyond what they were told was praying when they were in their religious upbringing. So we'd love to hear your perspective on what's the difference between these kind of prayers that we're talking about in the sense of like living our life as a prayer, as opposed to prayers based off of, now you say your prayers to God before bed, otherwise you're going to hell.
Right. Yikes.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yikes.
You can imagine now as an adult, I don't want to pray.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
Right?
There's so much hurt around it because it's been so manipulated. For me, and I think you can speak on this very well because you grew up with Catholic religion. Am I saying that right?
Christian.
I think for me, it all comes down to, is it real for you? Is it a real connection for you? And when you're told to do something and then say these words, maybe that never resonates with you. I pray the rosary. I love me a good Hail Mary. I love it. I love the Our Father. I love all those prayers and I work with them. I've consciously chosen to work with them because I was so curious about this way of praying because I didn't grow up with it. And seeing the destructive forces that have come from religion, my little curious bunny was like, well, let me pray those prayers and see how it feels. Like, let me see what happens when I dive into that. And I would say that's a whole nother podcast in its own. But just to come back to your question, ultimately, nobody can teach you how to pray. Nobody can tell you what to say. Nobody can tell you how to relate with something that's so unique in its experience to everyone, yet there's these beautiful universal guidelines that we all get to experience. And I think everything comes back to what has been a big red through line in this conversation is relationship, right? How do you relate with something that you cannot see, that it maybe initially you cannot hear or feel, and just say, all right, I'm going to open my mouth and hello, are you there? God, is anybody listening? Like that could be the start. And for me, trust is at the foundation of everything. Like, if I don't have faith, if I don't trust that somehow there's some beautiful cosmic force, faceless, nameless force that is listening to how I'm feeling in every moment, right? When you're saying about doing the dishes and manifesting, it all comes down to our feelings and our thoughts. So if I'm here in humility and I'm opening myself up, then that's a true prayer. Even if you don't have the fancy words, even if you don't know the ancient languages, like all of those are super powerful. And it comes back to what we were talking about before, right? When I pray the rosary, I'm connected to all of the women and all of the men that have from way pre-Christianity sat with their beads and said this prayer. So there's a connection to that. When I'm chanting in Sanskrit, I'm connecting to thousands and thousands and thousands of years of people that these words have been spoken on their lips and the energy's been built. And so when we use the traditional prayers or the traditional chants or whatever it is, there's a palpable energy because that whole like cosmic body is already very charged. I don't know if that's more powerful than being on your knees on the earth and saying, I don't fucking know what's going on, but I'm here and I'm willing to learn. I'm hurting. I'm lost. Thank you for guiding me. Please show me. It's all about authenticity. It's all about the heart. There's no right or wrong, but how much can I put my ego apart and my human existence is so much more beautiful. Like letting all of those parts that we've been taught to protect ourselves from being ultimately vulnerable. Because if I believe in something that's greater than me, I have to put everything in me aside to really listen, right? If I know what I want to hear, if I know what I want to feel, if I want to have a particular outcome, I'm already messing with the magic. So we've talked about that, like being naked at the altar. What does that really mean? It's like, okay, all I know is that I want to feel love in my heart. I want to be in right relation with the people that I love. I want to be in right relation with the people that I'm learning to love. And I want my footprints and my presence here to leave something more beautiful than when I came. So what does that mean? I don't know, but being in prayer and being at the altar is that like, I don't know, show me. And then slowly but surely, everybody who steps into that space, into that arena will see like, oh, the synchronicities start happening. And all of the sudden, like these little magical things will start happening. And then you meet the person that you've been wanting to meet for 15 years. And all of a sudden you get all these little like light bulbs that something is actually listening. And then over time, as that relationship strengthens, then all of a sudden it's all there is. Like you said, every moment is manifesting. Every moment is a prayer. Why would I ever not want to be in that? I think when you spend so much time and you're so in love with this relationship, then it is all there is, right? And we still have our human experiences and everything, but it's coming home at the end of the day to what am I really, what is my truth in my bones, in my body, when I'm just by myself and nobody's watching and I'm naked and I'm sad and I'm fragile and I'm vulnerable. What am I doing? I'm laying it on the altar. I'm laying it all here. When something magnificent happens, thank you. The power of gratitude, the most beautiful prayer we've been given as a people. I say thank you so much. I know it's not me making it happen. It's never us making it happen, right? We're instruments. Yes, we put in the energy. Yes, we educate ourselves. Yes, we refine our skills to be of service to. So everything comes back to spirit. And when everything comes back to spirit, everything comes back to us because it's reciprocity. So I feel like with religion, to come back to your question and all of that, it's given us a lot of beauty and it's given us a lot of things to think about that are not functioning for our time anymore. that are not in alignment with our generation and our sense of freedom and our sense of sovereignty and our sense of wanting to really be the artist of our own world. And so we can distill the nuggets and the beauty and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but really come into what does it mean for me, my personal heart, to have a relationship with spirit, and what does that look like, and what does that feel like to me? What are the words? What's the flavor? What are the songs? What are the rituals, right? And to start really personalizing our relationship with something greater, something that loves us, something that takes care of us beyond anything we could ever imagine.
So that segues us into our creation of what we decided to place all of the most important things on the altar of our hearts, which has ultimately created the life in which we live, which has allowed us to genuinely be the embodiment of that which we share. And we, over 2 years ago,
I think so. Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
We joined forces in a really real way. We've been friends for years. We met in an online sisterhood container. I had a realization not too long ago, actually, that the reason why sisterhood is so important to me is from the age of 7 years old. I was at boarding school and I was raised by my sisters, 52 of us in a boarding school. And when I was really young, we slept in a room with, I don't know, I want to say 12 beds in a line, like Annie, like all these beds in a line. And it was just all me and my sisters, like from a very young age, raising each other. And all the way till the age of 17 years old. So for me, my nervous system rests in sisterhood. Like where sometimes, it's like, oh, when I think about like my childhood home, when I go there, it's like, for me, it's when I'm around women supporting each other, like my whole nervous system just relaxes. And for like a very strong part of my upbringing and just who I am today is that no matter who it is or how deeply related to them, if they're a woman, they're my sister. And specifically the women that are in my personal, like, inner core circle, of like, no matter what is said in the presence, or if they're not physically in the space, to always hold their name in the highest, to speak their name in a room full of opportunities, to make sure that if anybody says anything that is of dissonance or not in alignment, to be a representation of that individual in the space, even when they're not there. And if there's anything that needs clearing, go directly to that individual as soon as possible. Like, these are really core pieces that I live my life by, and therefore I'm surrounded by very empowered women that empower me. I empower them. We uplift each other. We free each other's voices. We hold each other when we're down, and we celebrate each other's wins, like if it was happening to ourselves, And that for me has been one of the greatest catalysts in growth of my whole life. And so the two of us coming together after meeting online in a sisterhood and then deciding to actually create our own sisterhood, packed with all of the pieces that have supported us of genuinely walking a life of absolute magic and being the embodiment of the beauty way, and packing it into a 7-week online course and being able to run different rounds. And we have officially decided that we are about to launch the enrollment process for the next 4th ever Florescence.
Oh, so good. It's such a treat. I feel like I'm always so in love with you. And I, as you know, honor you so much. And I'm always bursting with just being so proud of the way that you live your life. No, pride is a little bit of a weird word, but I feel that like, I think it's an innocence proud. Just like, wow, look at all the energy you put in. Look at all the work you put in. And look at how you always come home to yourself and to your heart and check and come into more integrity and refine. And there's just the way that you are programmed and the way that you choose to program yourself, and then the way that you walk with that, and then everything around you get more beautiful, is such a huge gift to the world and to my life. And having my own medicine and then bringing that together, I was so for the Florescence in the community, yesterday we had a sister circle. And I was there and people were sharing, and I had a moment of melting, like, wow, I remember seeing your face for the first time in the call. And then you were introduced by Vasumi, and she was like, I met Blu and blah, blah, blah. And you were Charlotte at the time. And you started speaking, and I just remember feeling like something alive and in my body, which I know is everybody who's ever heard your podcast or had the pleasure to meet you feels that same like activation. And during the circle, I felt that like, wow, this is the humble beginnings, right? It's like you've had your experience with growing up with all these sisters, and then it distilled into coming into what does it mean to consciously now do that as an adult and as like a seeker. And then connecting with me through your vision and us diving in and feeling like, wow, you never know how something's going to take shape, but now it's taken shape in this incredible container that we've nourished as a little baby. And now she's grown into a beautiful flowering tree with all these sisters from all over the world that are getting to experience this medicine that we've been so privileged to experience for a long time now. And so this next round just feels like we've taken a break. We've gone through many rites of passage in our personal lives. Ooh. We've come out stronger, and we've come out more devoted and more refined. And this next round feels really exciting because we get to pour all of that into something that is going to ripple out and bring medicine. And then seeing the sisters who've gone through the program now running parts of the program, running the community, being fully empowered, and really having a life-changing experience.
Hosting their own courses, creating women's moon circles, new moon ceremonies, like really stepping into that level of leadership with the tools that they have acquired within the program, and also the permission they gave themselves within the program that they actually already had everything that they needed. And it was more so just a deep level of embodiment of, I can do this. I am enough. I am worthy. I'm transmuting the imposter syndrome and recognizing that women coming together and sitting in circle in pivotal times in humanity have been what our ancestors have done for many millennia. And the potency of what happens when we sit as equals in a circle with an intention and attention is miraculous. It's so juicy. It's so good because it's so real, and it's genuinely created such a massive ripple into our lives. And the beautiful thing about this experience is that we get to incorporate the things that have really activated us from the inside out. So there's a module around the gene keys and going into the hologenetic profile and activating the blueprint. We also have in the past had Richard Rudd show up in the container and the founder of the Gene Keys and do a full invocation for the women for the whole journey and bring the masculine energy, divine masculine energy into the space. We have gone into modules of writing medicine music, and that is your like strong forte. It's something that I dabble in. I'd like to do more than dabble. However, this is like your lifeblood, Reggie Riverbear, song bear of all of the magical things that just pour through her and create the divine frequencies of allowing my nervous system to rest.
We go into storytelling, which is what you've brought to the world in such a beautiful way, and teaching people how to really, or not teaching, inviting everybody to share their own story in their own way, and really taking ownership of we are worthy to share and to tell, and using this epic media time of social media and all these things that are available to us. Media's medicine.
That we are the media now with our social medias, with our Instagram stories. You know, there's more people that watch my Instagram stories than probably some news channels, right? like I actually have a broadcasting platform at the tip of my fingers, and recognizing whether we like it or not, it's here. And how can we, whether we choose to, have a social media or not, it's about recognizing that our stories are for creation, and how are we utilizing our stories to create more of that which we are calling in, and also recognizing that we are the media, and how we can navigate that in a way that it becomes a tool, but it doesn't use us, and how we can find our voice and powerfully project it out into the space without dropping a word, because we've allowed ourselves to clean through our throat chakra of any distortion or suppression, and having a safe space to be able to actually start strengthening that muscle again in a place of our higher self and what it is that we're here to bring forward into the world and our unique medicine. So there's the storytelling, there's the gene keys, there's
altar work, altar work.
And then of course the altar work, which we all talked about before, and learning how to activate the 4 directions and building our own individual altars and like creating our relationship with that. We then go through a deep journey of 40 days of devotion. So we activate the 40 days of devotion right at the beginning of the program. So aligned with building the altar, then we go into 40 days of devotion and allow ourselves to create a relationship with the altar over 40 days with our sisters, holding ourselves accountable. Every time I do a 40 days of devotion challenge, it's a worldwide movement. There's people from all over the world that jump on the train.
Incredible. Yeah.
And then having the sisters in the 7-week program that are all doing it together and checking in every week and having accountability buddies and allowing ourselves to actually understand how this relationship is cultivated over a period of time and what's coming up for all of us. And then there's also renegotiating our relationship with money and finances and how we are constantly in a conversation with finances based off of a vibratory state.
Yeah.
And you know, these are pieces that are like pillars of the temple that are so necessary, and yet in our modern day and specifically within our culture within the US, we haven't been given rites of passages into womanhood.
Right.
When we first started bleeding as children, it was like, for me personally, it was something to be disgusted by. It was a shame. Like, oh my God, all the boys would pick on you in school. If, oh, you're like bleeding, that's disgusting. And it was like this, it becomes sort of like the runt of everyone's joke when you're, you know, a young girl like starting to bleed, as opposed to recognizing actually that you're finally stepping into a position of true power from the embodiment of actually bearing life with the Stargate Enterprise between your leg from one dimension to the next. And actually to be a woman is one of the most miraculous things, because you can actually create life out of a non-physical being and then birth it into this world. Like realizing actually, how do we rewrite those relationships and recognize if we didn't have a rite of passage, how can we make one and create that so that we all shift our relationship to what it means to be a woman. And what it means to be in sisterhood, and what it means to actually have that level of support founded from a place of meticulously designed curriculum that allows us to activate a life of beauty and magic from the inside out.
Casually, and with lots of laughter.
So much laughter, so much silly giggles.
Lots of rich connection. What do you say would be the one thing that has shifted for you since we started the program?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is recognizing, yes, we are facilitating, but we're also students of the container. And what that does is it allows to even the playing field and bring us back into a circle, not a pyramid, right? There's like Reggie and Blu that are facilitating and have all of the answers. Actually, we come to the altar of the calls with our hearts broken or like feeling run down or not had slept the night before. And we come with that vulnerability, which is actually a permission slip to say, you know what, please do not pedestal or make me something greater than I am. Please witness my human, and in my human, meet your own power. And so that's what I've learned, is that we go on a journey. 7 weeks isn't a short amount of time. 7 weeks, so much can happen when you actually start shifting what's on your altar and what's in your prayer and where your focus is going and who you're being held accountable by and what is your intention as you go through this ceremony, when every single night me, were sitting in front of a chalkboard or a corkboard of photos of all of the women in the container and praying and lighting a candle for these women and going on a massive energetic ceremony and journey. I go through it as a student myself. And so every round is different. Every round is a different constellation of individuals, of 8 billion people on the planet, those that have felt the call and the resonance, those that have felt the resistance but had the courage to move through it, those that have said, you know what, my commitment is to this, and anything that is standing in the way, I'm going to move through it because this is where I'm supposed to be. And those women that come together have a unique constellation that has a very unique prayer that teaches me something about myself that I didn't know before the course started. And so every time I come as the humble student, and yes, we are creating the space, and yes, we are the points of the call. However, we receive the medicine as much as we pour it. And so there's always just been something deeper that I'm learning. However, I think that within stepping in, I've met my own mother, like my mothering of myself and my mothering of the space and the nurturing of the sisters and the care that goes into it. And so I have met a level of devotion and nurturing motherly love that lives within me in a whole new way from facilitating the Florescence container.
Oh, Mama Bird Blue.
What about you, Reg? What have you learned?
I think, well, everything that you just shared, I fully resonate with. The joy of co-creating also with you, and seeing how, you know, you could do this by yourself, I could do my own thing by myself. It's not the same as really like bringing our little watercolors together, and I feel like there's such potency in our time where for me, unity consciousness and this like togetherness is such a huge part of what we're moving into. And so to be able to sit together and really be in the prayer together, that has been a huge gift for me. And like, I think the heartbeat of everything else has flourished from is this like, I just get to be with you and I get to spend time with you and we get to co-create and it gets to ripple out. And I love that a huge part of the feedback mostly has been like, I want to look at someone like, or I want someone to look at me like Reggie looks at Blue, or like our relationship and the love behind it and the depth and the authenticity, I think has been a huge part of what we unintentionally have been sharing. And I just love it when I feel the softening in other women's hearts, when we come in of so much competition and there's still a lot of tense energy in women relationships because we've been literally raised to see each other like it's you or me. That there's only one cool man in the whole party, who's gonna get him, instead of like banding together and like totally loving on each other and feeling, what you said, like how we get to rise into our own power. So receiving like the intimacy of our connection and then being able to create beauty out of that when then we can share is just really like locked into my bones what I already believed around turning everything into inspiration, right? If you like make another leap, like quantum leap in your growth, instead of me going like, oh, well, I don't know, nothing's happening for me, I'm just sitting here by myself. Instead, I get to go, fuck, I want to go with Blue. So let me get my rocket fuel together. So to feel just the majesty of relationship, and especially with you, and then getting to feel how that then creates, we're at the seed of this beautiful sisterhood. And so if we're in that place, I feel like everybody gets to be in that place and to feel loved and to feel seen and to feel held and encouraged and like given space to share. I feel like that's enriched my life in such a huge way. So I would say that's it for me. You're it for me, Blue. I went there.
Oh, it's so good. It's so lovely to have you back in the podcast. It's so lovely to be able to be launching this next round with you, and the excitement of this journey that we're about to embark on, and that fact that we get to open this up now to women all over the world that feel the call and feel the resonance to the work that has been created. And for anybody really that listens to the podcast that has been on this journey with me, I had a message from somebody the other day that was like I haven't seen you make an offering in so long, and it really has been like a really long time since I've even offered anything, because of, like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, there's been a dark night of the soul that we've both been navigating, and that's what it truly means to be a feeling human, is to allow that death part of the cycle to present itself, the winter of the human cycles to present themselves, and then when it's ready and when it starts to become spring and everything's coming back to life again, then to honor that, and then to for my energy and our energy to be fully behind it, and then be ready to go for the next round. And so that's where we're at, is that we've gone through winter, we're coming into spring, and we're starting to be able to share. So this is the first sort of outreach that we are sharing on the podcast of the next round of Florescence. So if you are feeling the call, if you're listening to this podcast and recognizing that there's a reason why you're listening to this podcast, there's a reason why you're feeling a resonance, there's a reason why your heart is probably speeding up while we're talking about this, because there's something that's pinging inside of you that says, I think I'm meant to be there. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And all of the information is going to be in the show notes in the video, that you can find out all about Florescence and what it has to offer, the modules that we have. We also be having, accountabilities and growth work. And then the best part about all of it is at the end, we're going to be doing an in-person meetup where we all get to come together and hold each other and love each other and sit in circle and sisterhood and song and celebration and ceremony, and be able to witness each other in person and hug and look into each other's eyes, and to be held after a 7-week journey that we've all embarked on together, really meeting the deepest parts of ourselves and being able to be of service from that place. So I'm so excited to continue to collaborate with you. And every time I hear you share, anytime I hear your stories, I just learn something different and new. And it always is an invitation for me to come back to my prayer. Every time I hear you speak, it's just a constant walking permission slip for the sacred to always be remembered in every aspect of my life. So Reggie Riverbear, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Blue. Yeah, I love you.
It's so good.
Thanks, Mama. I'm so proud of your creation. It's so beautiful to just witness you, like the power of your authenticity and how it's flourished into reaching, dare we say, millions of people and being able to bring this medicine. So thank you for always creating just divine beauty. I love you so much.
You know, darling, we just walk the beauty way. It is important.
It is.
We're constantly surrounded by beautiful things that constantly reinforce the feeling of beauty within one being, and recognizing the greatest investment we can ever make is the investment of allowing ourselves to clear anything away in our hearts and in our minds that is not saying that we are already inherently beautiful just the way that we are, just the way that we be. Lily's making a racket over on the side of the podcast because she knows that if she looks at Rachel long enough that she may just give her a treat. So she's growling now on the side of the podcast. So she's like, Rachel, give me some food, give me a treat. This is what we're doing. So if that's what you're hearing and you're listening to the audio, that's what happens. She is a resident she's a reoccurring resident on the Deja Blu podcast. She's also the Deja Blu podcast mascot.
Yes. And really the whole heart and soul of the podcast is Shnu.
Pretty much. Oh, there it is.
All right.
She agrees. Alrighty. Thank you, my darling. It's so beautiful to be able to have this conversation with you. And for all of you incredible beings that are feeling the resonance to come join us on the next round of Florescence, all of the information is in the show notes. So check it out and feel into the resonance. And if there are any challenges with finances or anything that is presenting itself in the way that is obstructing your desire to be there, but there's some sort of story that is blocking you from being able to actually attend, then please just send us an email and to reach out, and just know that this space is a place of all heart, open arms, and being able to weave a win-win for everybody so that we can be able to get this medicine out into the world. So all of you beautiful humans, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. It is such an honor to be able to have my best friend here on the beautiful golden hands of this podcast, sharing her heart and her medicine and her prayer with all of us. And so may this be an invitation for you to come back to the altar, come back to the altar of your intentions, come back to the altar of your prayer, recognizing the potency of your prayers, recognizing that we are manifesting in every in-between moment, whether we are consciously or unconsciously doing. So it's always a great idea to bring it into the conscious realm, and to always remember that that we are the greatest altar that exists is the altar of our lives and the altar of our hearts. And so I'm sending you so much love. If you resonate with this episode, then please go ahead and share it on all of your podcasting platforms, on all of your social media platforms. Go and put it in your stories, and go share a good message in a good way. And until next week, thank you so much for tuning in. Today's sponsor of this podcast is Becoming Prosperous, which is a 4-week online self-guided course aligning you with what it truly means to live a prosperous life. So if you want to check out the link in the show notes here on YouTube and also on all podcasting audible platforms.